Hey guys, welcome to Probate Cafe. I am your host, Eric Kaiser, and today I have a special guest. We have Mia Kelley,
Hi, I'm Mia Kelley.
and today we want to talk about a few things, but mainly the most important asset of a typical probate, which is the real property. And we're going to go into a few things. And the reason why I invited Mia here today is that she's got some great experience that she's going to share and insightful information as far as if you are going through probate, if you're in probate now, if you have a property to sell, what to look out for from the aspects of the investor offer. So I'm going to jump right into it and welcome Mia.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be working with you and to be on your Probate Cafe.
Perfect. Well, thank you for being here. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of your experience and how it relates to estate homes. Obviously, you have the experience of working with basically a wholesaling company or investor, national investor. So share a little bit about kind of what you were doing for how long and.
I've been in the investment side of real estate since 2016. In 2018, I started working with a really big national investment firm, and we operated a marketplace for investors. So we would basically, get properties under contract and then help the investor to purchase them. So we just did all the negotiating and all the legwork for the investors. So I was, what you're doing now, you're doing all the legwork and negotiating for the sellers and trying to make sure they get the best price. I was negotiating for the investors. So I was making sure that the investors got the best price and that, my brokerage was able to make a piece as well in the transaction. So now I'm getting to see all sides of it.
Yeah, so those of you who don't know, Mia has joined with myself or with me in working with estate. So she brings her experience and my experience together, and we're able to assist estates sell real property, but actually evaluate offers a little bit better because of your experience. So it keeps us on track with what to look out for, and that's really important. So. Also, here's a question. As far as, probate homes and estate homes, whether it's a trust sale or a probate sale, what's the number of transactions you have been involved with typically on a year when you were working for that company? Was it a lot?
So I was closing around like 40 transactions a month or so. In my career with the company, I closed just under 200. I would say that out of all of those, personally, I only closed maybe like 10 or 12 probate and estate sales. It was always really difficult for me to work with probate and estate sales because the agents are, trying to get the most amount of money for the sellers. So it wasn't always the lowest hanging fruit for me. But I know a lot of wholesalers and a lot of agents and investors that really niche down and just look for those deals. Because those people sometimes are easy to kind of prey on, which is sad. But I never had any luck, and so I just didn't really try those avenues. But definitely a lot of investors, a lot of wholesalers see the opportunity to try and, get a really, really smoking deal from somebody who might be just trying to get out of a tough situation.
And then dealing with those investors, for example, your company would basically act as a wholesaler, or were they an investor? They would actually do the flip property and the renovations, or
my company would just get the property for the investor, and then the investor would flip them. So, and I was, had a really strong relationship with all of my buyers. So essentially, I was just like one of their teammates that was helping them find the best deals and get the best prices, and then I would see their project through and be ready to get them the next deal when they were ready.
So how much would you say maybe an estate or someone selling a property to one of these wholesale companies would lose, for example, on that sale? Obviously, we factor in, the investor's profit margin if they're going to flip it or whatever they're going to do. But then we also have to factor in, kind of what a wholesaler would make as well. What would you say that would be additionally?
It really just depends. I can think of one in particular that I had in LA, and it was a probate, and it was like a friend of the seller. They didn't go with my offer at first because they thought what I was doing was funny, and I told them the other offer that they had was a wholesaler because I knew them, and then that person had their deal tied up for like a week. The seller was a friend of the person who passed, and he just wanted to buy an RV to go travel to Colorado because his son lived there. They told me their whole story, and I was like, okay, we'll go with my offer. We'll get this done. I knew my numbers. They didn't go with me, and like 2 weeks later, he called me and was so embarrassed. We got it done, and I think we were still able to make like $50,000 on it. for
Wow.
the price that we paid. And then the investor, it was like a development deal. So, but it just, sometimes people don't realize what they have. We were the best option in that case for that seller, so he wasn't upset about the price because we really truly were the best fit. But a lot of times, yeah, people don't realize and they're leaving money on the table, or maybe, all the beneficiaries aren't really getting the best situation that they could just because they're not well versed in what's going on in the market.
Yeah, and I think if you're an agent and you deal with a lot of these types of properties, like that's exclusively what I work with as far as probate sales, trust sales, estate sales. That a lot of times I've talked to other agents and they won't really understand how to spot a wholesaler because they're basically doing the same job that you're being paid or that I would be paid to do to sell the property for the highest amount possible. So I always kind of have these tricks, to look and review the offers to try to decipher who's a wholesaler and who is not. Mm-hmm. What would you say some of the things to look out for would be? For example, someone's watching, they're going through probate, right, and they get these calls from these people even before they have their letters to sell the property. So they're getting bombarded. So what are the things that jump out or should jump out to them, or what we teach them to look out for?
Yeah. I think assignable offers obviously is a huge one that maybe a seller won't know about, but an agent knows to look out for. So making sure that the contract's not assignable, that they can't switch the buyers before close. If they're all cash, making sure you get proof of funds and that the proof of funds match whoever the buyer is. Checking for inspection periods. If it's truly a fix and flip deal that there's money to be made on it and, it's kind of like a no-brainer deal. No real investor should have a lengthy inspection. So even, with my business before, I was vetting out other wholesalers and investors that I knew in town that would tie up deals. So things like super long inspections, or if they don't deliver earnest money right away, or assignments, all of those things. Hard money is good. A lot of hard money guys are good, but just really vetting the buyer and knowing, being curious about what they plan to do with it. If they're very vague and they don't know the exit strategy, that could be a sign that maybe they're not the buyer.
Gotcha. And you're really friendly, so a lot of times these wholesalers or flippers will try to build that relationship initially, right? And they'll try to come from a different perspective than someone just, hey, I want to buy the house, or do you want to sell the house? I'd like to buy it, that kind of thing. So even if somebody comes across they as your best friend, so to speak, you might not know, and you might build that relationship, and then you mistakenly trust this person that, and if you want to sell it, I guess that's great, but there's always, my philosophy is always to make sure everyone knows what's going on as far as, because I tell my clients, if it's going to be a flip property or a wholesale property or whatever it is, everybody deserves to make a profit. Otherwise, they won't do the deal. But
everybody's in it for money.
Yeah,
no one's doing this for free.
No one's doing it for free. And, basically, I guess my job is not to let them, walk away with those riches that you see on the, the HGTV and all the house flipping shows on cable, right? So
and the transparency is huge. That's why I was able to find so much success in my business. A lot of wholesalers or big outfits or big investment brokerages get maybe sometimes a bad rap sometimes. I was able to always keep my name really clean. And there's been a lot of instances like that one. That guy knew exactly what I was going to do with the deal. I told him, look, this other person you have an offer from, I know them. They send me their deals to get them sold. And then he came back, because I was honest. And there's been several. I had one that wasn't a probate, but the mom had a stroke and a heart attack, and they needed to get the money to put her into a home. And he got tied up with a wholesaler that I knew. And I told him, I know it's going to happen. And then he came back. And those are the people that then want to work with me forever, because I got the deal done and I was super honest about exactly what I was going to do with it.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to be, upfront, and then that's where you get the deals. And if everybody knows what's going on, and everybody expects a certain amount of profit.
And for some people, going with a quick, easy cash offer, especially if it's kind of a weird or niche property where it could maybe be a lot of things. Sometimes that option is the best option if people just want their money and a quick close, and so. That's the good thing about, being an agent and being able to give these sellers an option. You have the option to fix the house up to try to really get top dollar. You have the option to just do a quick, easy sale. We can help you, get it sold to a family member. So it's good when they have options they can choose from.
Yeah, and if they don't, it's kind of like they have that one option and that's it, and they think that's their only option. But yeah, it's not. It's kind of funny. It's I'm involved in probate sales all of the time. And in fact, today, just negotiating offers, and doing that, you got to make sure you don't act and jump too soon for an offer because, I think we just got another offer today, which was about 50,000 higher. Mm-hmm. So it's really important not to jump for the first offer and not to accept possibly the first offer that comes in the first day or two. Because you really have to do a good job for the estate and for all the beneficiaries. You got to leave it out there for enough time for people to view it, and you'll get. I'm sure you were in the process. You're trying to pressure everybody to accept the offer right away, and that's where you have to tell them.
I'm still doing that. I was doing that all day today.
There you go. So it's an interesting situation where a lot of people don't understand the back end of the things that happen during the process. If you don't have that experience, that can really affect things. So you can see just the difference in and having a strong agent because You've seen me work where we have the agents and the investors come in. What do we need to come in at? Whatever, and what we tell them, we shut them down and we say you have to write your highest and best offer. I can't share anything with you. And that happened today. And the guy came back and wrote 50,000 higher. So it's really important to have a strong agent that can tell these investors no matter how bad they're crying, right? I think I took about 10 or 15 calls today and text messages about them. Where do we need to come? Yeah. But to do a good job for the estate, you can't divulge that information. And agents that don't have the experience is really, it can really impact the bottom line for the estate. So, and share with us a little bit about, did you ever renovate the properties that you guys would buy or? I
didn't renovate. My guys would ask me my opinion on things and, but most of the time I would have to kind of analyze renovation costs. So my job was really just to, find the dirty deals that needed TLC. And then I would analyze, what we thought the after repair value was, the ARV, and kind of work backwards to figure out where do I think my guys can buy it, and then just negotiate even cheaper than that so that I knew that they would buy it. But so I did have to kind of have an idea of what properties would cost to get really top dollar on the back end.
Gotcha. And then, so the criteria that you use, would it be just, obviously your estimates determine the ARV? Would it be,
So most investors, and it obviously changes, every investor or anybody who's renovating a property has different renovation costs. Everybody has different crews, different, timelines. So it's really hard to nail it down. And numbers are such a fugazi. Most investors really just care about being at the bottom market. They want to be, the cheapest thing. But the way that they're running their numbers typically is the after repair value, so the ARV, and they're looking, especially now in this market, for things that closed in the last 30 to 60 days. And with things being so unpredictable with what's going to happen, so they don't care about comps, comparables that are old. They're just looking at the last 6 months, 6, 3, 2 months right now. And then with that ARV number, typically investors are wanting to buy at 75, anywhere from 60 to 80% of repair value. So you would, minus out 70% of the repair value and then minus rehab is what most investors, I would say nationwide, people, most investment groups, if you listen to Bigger Pockets or different things, everybody knows about the 75% rule. Most people use that, but that's a loose term depending on the age and how big the project is and how long it's going to take. There's a lot of factors that might sway where people are buying, but over the last 2 years in LA, we were noticing in that 70 to 75% of ARV minus repairs.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've seen that. I usually see about 80, maybe 85. I mean, I kind of beat them up a little bit when I when I review those offers. So I tell them that, hey, you're not going to get rich, but you'll keep your crew fed, and that's kind of my objective. Is if I can keep their crew fed and keep them in the process, keep them working, I'll let them go make money off someone else on another deal with some other agent.
Yeah.
That's kind of my philosophy. It's been a good strategy because I know you've got to know which investors to trust to close. It'd be good to know their costs and things like that. So that's typically what I tell them. I was like, hey, you're going to make a killing on the next one. On this one, you're going to keep the wheels greased and things moving. And
that's the thing. A lot of the professional, we would call them semi-pro flippers. A lot of these guys, that is their full-time job, and that is how they feed their families, and that's how their crews stay fed. So it is sometimes it's not always about the home run. Sometimes it's just taking those base hits and keeping, like you said, keeping the wheels greased and just keeping the money moving.
Totally, yeah. And as far as a timeline, when you guys would buy a property and or either buy it and hold it or wholesale it? What's the kind of timeline that you guys were looking at? Was it pretty quick?
For us, it was quick. We always like did a double close and would just, we were truly just getting the investor the deal and getting in and out as quick as possible. But most investors want to be in and out of a project in like 3 months if they can, 3 to 6 months. Here in California, it takes a lot longer. But really, especially in this market, like you got to be out of a project in 6 months to really make sure that you're not going to have any crazy market shifts or anything happen. I had a guy who bought a property at like the end of August. He really, really wanted to be done. He must have bought it in July, and he wanted to have it listed by like the end of September. They didn't get it listed till after Thanksgiving, and he sat all through the holidays, all through like I think it might still be sitting. So timing is really important for these flipper guys. They got to get in and out of the projects and get it back on the market, especially with the seasons and things.
Oh yeah, once fall hits, everything kind of slows up and the brakes come on because people are a little nervous and they just don't want to do anything over the holidays. So I see that a lot. And talk about buyers. I know you have a group of, obviously you've been doing this for a while, so you have a group of buyers or investors that you trust to close the deal, that offer fair value. Is that how typically an agent would acquire a buyer? Because in this instance, for example, like this deal I'm working on today, we're probably going to accept an offer in the next 2 days. But I get these offers from agents that maybe are a little inexperienced. So you're not sure where you get the buyers from. So it's always a challenge to try to figure that out. Are they serious? Are they just a call from an online source? So how did you guys find your buyers? Did they just come to you? Do you vet them?
We worked really hard and we vetted them. So the good thing about working with a big like national acquisition company is that they are going to have super vetted buyers, and we did really strong terms. Like people would release earnest money and be ready to close. I know that that's something that you get people to do as well. But yeah, it takes a long time to cultivate those relationships and to vet them and to get them to really prove to you and send you proof of funds and make sure. And most of those buyers are busy. They're busy looking for a deal and they're getting blown up by a million people. So they're hard to build relationships with. So I was always really fortunate to have a full sales team that was their full-time job. But I was in that role before. So we would, literally look for the freshest flipped properties and find those guys and build relationships with them and bring them value by bringing the deal directly to them. And, no one else was offering on it. It was theirs if they wanted it, So we just kind of took all the legwork out. Because when they're on the MLS competing too, it's hard. It's hard for everybody. Everybody wants a deal.
That's true. That everybody wants a deal or they want to make a killing and they don't really understand. They should be shooting for those, they're hitting those base hits, right? Because and a lot of the deals that I get or offers that I get, they can't really justify a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So they're just kind of throwing darts as far as prices. And that's what's a challenge because they don't really understand even kind of the offers that they're submitting. It's always a learning experience in dealing with these guys because they're all different. Yeah. So you never know what you're going to be hit with, right? Whether they're not going to ask for the they're going to come up with something. They're going to not include something in the offer. For example, if they know they're solar, they're not going to include that. They're not going to bring it up. If somebody doesn't mention it, they're going to hit you for that.
Loose, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then there's always renegotiating, and that's what I would always tell people. And that's what I told this guy today on another deal. Like everybody's going to try to renegotiate. We don't like to play that game. We like to get our numbers right the first time. So the highest offer isn't always necessarily the best. So it's like really knowing who your buyer is and what they're going to do and are they going to perform.
Yeah.
Especially when MLS, because if you go live on the MLS and then you get your deal tied up and then it gets canceled and then it like creates a stigmatism, then everybody thinks something's wrong with the property. So I think just, finding that right buyer the first time is always what we're hoping for.
Yeah, because what they do, they try to come in and they renegotiate it. They'll tie it up or they'll do different things. And when you were a full-time kind of wholesaler for this investment company, what were some of the things that you did initially that you would use to try to get the best offer? Were there any things that
I was really good at getting the agents to tell me where the other offers were. You are a hard man to crack. That's why I didn't really mess with probate agents. But I was like, I would ask 7 different ways, and I would call them 7 times a day until they would tell me, and I would just exhaust them until they were like, I'm just going to go with this girl because I know she's going to close, and I just like sick of her calling me.
Yeah. Well, they know you're consistent. You're probably going to make it happen, right?
I would say what I meant, and I would mean what I said, and I just really pride myself on like not over promising and under delivering. And
No.
a lot of, you and I have had this conversation. Like, I've done deals with Remax agents that I didn't like. So there's these big brokerages that a lot of people don't like. So I was able to use that to my advantage. And like maybe they had a bad experience with somebody that I worked with, and I would be like, well, I'm not going to do that to you. So I always just kind of tried to play the cards in my favor, and it got me very far. But that's not everybody's strategy. And a lot of people don't care. They'll burn bridges and run fast and dirty and write whatever and try to beat you up later because they just don't care.
Yeah, and that's a funny thing. It's like even this property that I'm selling in another county, that I'm getting these offers from these guys up in the LA County area, and I know they haven't seen the property. They're blind offers. I know from 5 years ago when they basically kind of screwed me, and not having that experience is they didn't put the EMD in. They drug it out. And it's like those are hard lessons to learn initially because it makes you look bad, and like you didn't know what you're doing, which at the time I probably didn't 5-6 years ago. But as you go through this,
I would play on that with the agents and always make them feel like they were gonna look dumb if they didn't go with my offer. But there was something, I don't know what else you said that made me think of something. It'll come back.
Yeah, and what you're saying about how these agents, like we are asked all the time, where do we need to come in at? And that would even happen today. And I think in America, we're always going to be in a seller's market because there's just no way
we'll ever catch up.
I don't think so. I think people are having kids. The population's growing, outpacing the homes available, right? So, I think we're always going to be in that point. I don't think it's probably ever going to be like that or go back to that. But it's you're always getting these people, where do I need to come? They're pretty desperate in wanting the deal. And, I always say the best people that you can probably sell to is a family or somebody that's wants like a long-term hold. They may be grown up in the area, and those are in my perspective the best buyers, right? Because those are
they're
ones
going to pay more, and that's like, and those are the questions that I would ask as an acquisition agent for investors. Was always like, do you have any end user buyer interest? And if there was, it was like, I knew I can't compete. Because I just can't. My guys are not going to pay what an end buyer will pay. And it's crazy with the inventory. Like, I mean, it's like a fact. I don't know what the number is, but somebody's told me even if we started building like at rapid rates, like insane, it would take us like years to catch up on the inventory crisis. But every deal that I've been looking at for like investors is getting bid out by owner occupants. If it's a good area, because we have so many little like micro markets within every market, right? So all the hot areas that people want to be in, you're going to get owner occupant interest unless the house is just dilapidated. Like there's always a way to find somebody who will pay a little bit more if it's a good area.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking with a few clients now where they're kind of I'm trying to explain the fact that, hey, we should paint the inside of the house all these colors, and we should put new carpet in the bedrooms and maybe possibly flooring and do these small little renovations. But it's just going to return probably twice as much money because you're going to get either it's not going to qualify for the appraisal if it's and most of these probate homes that I end up selling they're not luxury property, right? They're around the FHA mark, the qualification level for the loan. So usually the people are buying those properties are on the 3.5% down. They don't have a lot of money to renovate. If the appraiser is going to be a little more strict on an FHA loan than conventional, so they're going to call out a few things probably as an appraisal condition. Well, if the buyers don't have the money, usually they can't front the money. They can finance a lot of things, but there's certain ways to structure the deal that it's better just to possibly get more money on the sale price and do these small renovations. As far as just paint and carpet, you get the best return, and just spruce it up so nothing kind of goes wrong through that loan process. But some clients of mine, they're just adamant as we're going to sell as is, and they just it is what it is. You can't really. It's their wishes. I just present the option, and I give them kind of best case scenario, worst case scenario on both avenues. So it's really interesting where in the situations that we deal with when we sell those types of homes. And I know we're talking about negotiations with agents, which is really, really crucial. When I was looking for a comparable sale on another property in San Bernardino County that I'm listing, I noticed a comparable sale down the street. And the agent, it looks like, listed it a little bit higher than probably it should have been listed, probably about $75,000. And within 10 days, they sold it for $100,000 less. It was $600,000 list, and they sold at $500,000. And I point these things out to my clients just to keep an eye out for certain things. For example, a lot of times we have maybe an investor that will come to us directly, and or we'll meet a buyer at an open house, and we'll end up representing them writing the offer. But it's really important to understand, like, making sure if you're working with an agent, making sure that you have the exact number, or, just kind of a total number of the open house attendees. How many offers did you receive? Because this particular agent, they ended up selling the property as well as listing it, but they listed $100,000 higher than what they sold at. They listed at $600,000, sold at $500,000, and it was in 10 days. That is very fast. It makes no sense. And I'm wondering.
We see that happen all the time, where agents will double dip a deal for way less. And like, especially being an acquisition agent, I can't tell you how many times I saw that where I offered more, and then they went with another investor and they represented them and they got less money. And that's not even just probate. I see that happen on the MLS all the time in my career, like all the time. Yeah. And we're like upset about it, and our boss is like, "Why'd you miss this one?" We're like, "They don't wanted it. We had no control."
And sometimes there's an excuse. I had one of those in LA where I went through the whole process. We had probably 40 people through this open house, and it was basically an as-is sale. I probably would not have qualified for a loan. So as we do all of this, we get some offers in. I think the highest offer I had was $605 by some investors. Well, the client, who was out of state in, I believe, Washington, told me after we did all this that, well, I kind of want to sell it to the neighbor because they took care of my dad in his final days. Well, it would have been nice to know that up front. So they ended up selling for $50,000. We sold it he wanted me to represent him. So it was $50,000 less than our highest investor offer. So yeah, sometimes those things happen, but if you're in that situation, always kind of hold your agent accountable, ask them questions, because they should be able to track and measure everything if they have inquiries from beneficiaries, because a lot of times the beneficiaries can stop the sale if they feel they have not gotten the value that they felt they should. So, kind of what I do is I do the virtual walkthrough, and I explain to them about the comparable sales. I walk them through the ARV, the breakdown of the Excel sheet. I kind of show them that. We go through the estimation so they can really see what the kind of profit margin will be for the investor if it's an as-is. So everybody really understands why they're doing something. And a lot of agents, I don't really know of any that can do that justification. And I think that's why I pretty much work with attorneys and their clients, is because of that fact. You've got to be accountable to everyone and be able to answer those questions. So it's knowing.
And I've gotten a lot of deals from knowing how to break it down to an agent. Like when an agent is like so firm, and I'm like, okay, but especially when they're insisting, we want to sell it as is, we want to go with an investor. And I'm like, okay, well, tell your seller to do the math, because this is what the ARV is. And if I break it down, then they're like, oh, you're right, no one's going to buy this. I'm like, you have to there's no money to be made. So normally people do. They're very, it's nice to have the skill set to be able to explain to somebody why your offer is what it is and justify it. But just so you know, a little weird flex, out of the 45 or 48 transactions that I closed in California, I probably only walked 4 of them.
Oh, wow, okay.
Because I knew my numbers so well. And as long as the agent wasn't lying to me, and there truly was no structure, no foundation. But that's another thing that people need to look out for, because it's if it's a true investor, they don't need to see it. What do they need to see? There's nothing to see. If you're really telling me the truth about what needs to be done in the pictures, the one that we were at is kind of weird with the patio and all that. But if it's bread and butter, I don't need to see anything.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you're working with an as-is property, typically what I'll do, I'll take about 100 photos of the property, and I'll take video, walk around the foundation. You look at everything, you look at the flooring, and you give them. They don't need to see the house, but I don't do that because I don't share that with the investors or buyers. I just do that for the beneficiaries if they're out of state or something, so they can actually see the condition.
I understand why the offers are coming where they are.
Yeah, and then when you get them in, you can say, okay, I had 15 people or 20 people through the open house of these investors, and these are our offers. Kind of.
The math's mathin'. But that's also sometimes these agents will be like, oh, no way. And I'll be like, well, and I'll vet the offers. And it's they have only one offer that's way higher, and it's an investor. It's okay, well, if there's only one guy, he's probably not real.
Yeah.
If everybody else is coming in this range, it's probably, that's where we got to be.
Yeah, somebody doesn't know their numbers, or somebody's confused,
They're
or
just lying.
it's a new investor that he went to a seminar or something, or watched a TV show and paid somebody for a seminar as well.
It's crazy the wholesalers that like, because my company, we would get wholesalers bringing us deals, and it would all the time be this like MLS deal that's only been on market for 2 days, and some like random guy Joe Schmo got it locked up, 50K under ask. I'm like, and they're like, I don't know, some guy referred me to this lady, like, and it's just some dumb agent who like. I'm like, how does this happen? And it happens all the time, every day.
Well, they said even a turkey can fly in a hurricane.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
so you will get lucky, or they will
If
get
they
lucky.
shoot their shots, like, it's a numbers game.
It is, and it's kind of funny. You're talking about agents not knowing their numbers, or not knowing how to do that. And what I see is like a lot of the newer agents are representing these investors because they're it's low hanging fruit,
They're
right?
eager.
They're eager. They want to make some money. They want to sell something.
They don't realize it's not a buyer.
Yeah, or they just don't have the skill set to understand the numbers and or present it that way. Because I have yet to see someone present me an Excel sheet that, hey, this is my ARV. My guy's going to make this. This is what we think he's going to make. Give me some. They never give me something that I can present to the estate of any kind of. I mean, they send me emails. These are all the properties that we worked on, but it's never like, okay, here's, if they really want to get the deal done, here's what it cost me to do this and this and this right around the corner. This is what we need to make. It's never like that logical. They're always looking for that upsell. And that property in LA, there's a property in LA that it's a probate sale. It's limited authority. So we have to go to court, and that's I think next week or the week after, I think the 10th. But it's kind of interesting. So an investor bought it, fed me the same lines and things like that. And they just fed me this line of BS after they released the deposit. It was only $10,000. But they were complaining it was his brother, and I think a family member. I think this is what they do. They develop these properties. But they tried to get us for $100,000 less. And then we're like, we'll go somewhere else, or we'll go back on market. And tried to get my client for $100,000 loss, and they ended up
closing.
Oh well, we're going to court, and but I think they're going to be the top offer anyway. But just the fact that them coming back trying to renegotiate with me and play with me that way when they knew what they were doing. They promise you everything under the sun. Oh, we don't need to see it. We'll do this. We'll release the deposit, and they're starting to be more aggressive to tie the deal up. And then they're trying to pull some stuff. So there's some really interesting things. You want to make sure.
And there are people who do that. There's a big company in LA that's known for tying up the deal and like never submitting earnest money and then never signing a cancellation. And like, so you do have to be really careful. I can't believe they tried to renegotiate 100. And so you didn't give it to them and they're not canceling.
Correct. Yeah, they're staying with it. And
so annoying.
Because initially he said, well, I'm going to offer this amount of money, which is a good amount. And I don't worry about the overbidding. I'll overbid anybody. And then he's promising me the stuff in the front end that he's forgetting what he's telling me. And then he's trying to pull this nonsense in the back. Well, we didn't take this and that. I'm like, hey, that was your decision. I'm not in charge of your business.
Yeah, do your due diligence.
You do your job. Don't try to pull this with us because it's not going to happen. So you do run into those situations where regardless of what they tell you, they can try to renegotiate. You just got to hold firm. And I think, again, in the California market, is if you hold firm, there will be somebody to come along to probably pay that price, that as long as it's within reason.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what, it's interesting. Every deal is different, and you're involved in enough of these, you've kind of, what to do, what to look out for, and how to protect your client, which is really crucial. I think that's really important because a lot of people, if they're newer or they don't do this a lot, they won't know that. Right.
All the games.
Yeah. Or you've got other situations where you have evictions and things like that. How do you deal with those? How do you deal with somebody trying to break in the property? There's a lot of things.
And that happens all the time. I offered on a probate deal and it was in San Diego and I sent my cousin to go look at it for me because the agent, it was like off market. But he insisted that I see it. He wouldn't accept any blind offers. So I got my cousin to go. I pay her $50 to open doors. And she went down there and she told me it reeked like cigarette smokes, that it was so bad. She sent me a video and he was like, no one's ever smoked in that house. I know for a fact, I was just there last week and I sent him the screenshots and he's like, oh no, somebody must have gotten the back door. And it's like, he was just an off-market guy trying to help his client out, and he didn't even have the property locked up, and somebody's squatting in. I'm like, well, you better like give me a really good deal since I'm taking care of this potential squatter issue that you have on your hands. I didn't get that deal, but I tried.
You know, it's crazy because some of these properties, you know, where somebody passes away, they'll stay vacant for months on end. So it's really good to have someone either check on a neighbor or somebody like that. But you know, technically, you're not supposed to go in the property. A lot of times, a neighbor will have a key that no one knew about, and they're like taking stuff out. So a lot of times, once that issue arises, you got to nip it in the bud. Because I've been involved with caregivers that were taking the client before they passed away to the bank, Wells Fargo, 3 banks in a day, trying to withdraw $10,000 at each day. I think they withdrew $30,000. That was one scenario. The other scenario, the caregiver opened the safe after the decedent passed.
Try to take everything.
You took everything, had jewelry and things like that. It was in a Newport Beach condo. Caregiver and knew. So when nobody knew that she had passed, my client didn't know that her mom had passed. And, you know, when she got there, the safe was cracked open. Couldn't do anything about it because how can they prove it? So I think if you have older parents that they're being taken care of by maybe a company or somebody, at least have something, you know, some sort of, you know, update from them probably every day or every other day, what's going on. Yeah, cameras.
So many things now.
And that's what we had. I had another property here in Orange County that we evicted someone. They came back and they were a beneficiary, but then they didn't like the fact that they were evicted. And so they would do everything to stall the sale. They'd put the epoxy or putty in the lock, and we couldn't open it. And then so we had to go and put 7 cameras in with Ring so we could all see what's going on if someone did break in. And you know, you just got to protect your client the best way possible. So these situations do come up, and you got to kind of maneuver with how to solve those issues. And that's the thing. It's like people don't know you could lose a lot of money, or an estate could lose a lot of money, because a lot of times the executor, the administrator, they didn't sign up for the job. They just kind of got picked, or it just kind of fell in their lap. Of course, they can hire maybe a fiduciary or somebody else to assist them, but a lot of times they don't, and they're getting bombarded with other beneficiaries. Hey, what's going on? So it can be a lot to deal with as far as stressful, and if they're out of state, that's even worse because they're not here. They can't see the property. They don't know what's going on. They've got to really trust you in that situation. Like I think I've got a 2-bedroom condo in Fullerton that we're renovating right now. My client's, I think, in Missouri. So the situation is, we've got to do all our updates. You let them know what's going on. You get your estimates, and you show them the end result, how it's going to be a much better deal. And obviously, usually the client will like to see the property renovated because that's what their parents or family members had it when they remembered it. So they always want to see it usually renovated and sold, their ideal situation. Oh, it'd be great to have a family move in here. Mm-hmm. I've had that happen over and over again. Yeah, because they really don't want to let it go to someone to make a bunch of money off their, there's still that sentimental attachment to it. So, and when you're dealing with somebody like that, you want to make sure you give them the information to make a good decision, whichever decision they decide to make, cash as is, or do the renovations. So, as long as, if you're working with an agent, as long as they can justify those things and have that as backup of why they did something or why they presented something in a certain way, that's really important, because then you can trust the agent that you're working with, that they actually know what they're doing. They've been through this process. Because again, you could lose $50,000, $100,000 by jumping too fast, trying to work with a weak agent that doesn't understand to hold fast in certain negotiations.
It happens all the time.
Yeah. And your company, you had how many people would you say in your office making calls every day? I mean, they're calling around the country.
So I just worked in 2 different markets. I worked in Colorado and California. So the agents were just specific to that market, but they've got locations like all over the nation. So they've got probably anywhere from 10 to 40 agents in every market.
And that's just one company.
Yeah. And there's other companies that are very similar. So there's a lot of folks out there doing that. Yeah,
and it's like you don't really know who to trust in those situations because you haven't met people. They're calling you on the phone. And, what do you do, right? So you got to...
Well, now there's every wholesaler course in the world on YouTube, skip tracing this, that. Like, it's really easy to generate probate leads and start calling people and make a friend on the phone and you don't know anything about real estate at all.
Yeah, if you're a good salesman.
Yeah, if you're good, and like it doesn't take much to be, a lot of people are good on the phones.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm terrible. I'm a terrible person on the phone. So, but it's like if you have that good reputation, you're gonna keep your business going by doing the best things possible and working with.
And it's like crazy. Like it'll be like some girl in like Pittsburgh calling you, and you have no idea they're calling you from a dialer or whatever, a guy in Pittsburgh, and they've never even been to California, and like they're getting these deals tied up off market. Just because they know how to generate and go to like the Secretary of State and pull different lists.
Yeah, and you got to be careful because you could lose. Again, the whole idea of protecting yourself is making sure you're getting the right offers from the right people and working with the right people that know how to negotiate those, because it is a challenge. It's not for the the weak of heart,
Yeah.
right?
Selling interesting deals that need work is a very like compromising situation to be in, because it's like it makes you really susceptible to a lot of people that are trying to make money. And whenever there's a lot of money involved, normally people get greedy.
Oh yeah. It's people you could, if you're dealing with, example, like not only probate, but also, I work with trust sales. So those properties are a little bit more expensive. So if you're not doing the right things there, you could lose even more money, 100,000, 200,000. I sold a property down in Carlsbad, and it was kind of that same situation where, we've had all these offers from, I believe, $1 million to $1,250,000. And we did have some adjustments and things like that. It was about a year ago, and I had the agent call me. One of the last offers, where do we need to be? I don't know how to write this offer. You got to help me out. It was a 1031 exchange. They had to buy. And I said, you have to write your highest and best offer. So it was kind of nice. They came in $200,000 over, and it was all cash because they had to do something with the money.
They needed to spend the money.
Yeah.
They love a 1031.
So, and I've run into this a lot. Even, I've got friends in the office, they're very honest. They go to church, everything. And, they are susceptible to the pressure of other agents. And because if for example, like if I was in the situation, I could have mentally thought, well, I've got these offers from $1 million to $1,250,000, and I think, but the property's probably, if I was inexperienced, I would have, I could have thought, well, maybe the value's 125, maybe 13. An inexperienced agent may have went to this other agent and said, well, come in at 13 and let's see what we can do. But you can't say that, right? And that's where you get those high offers. You tell them you got to write your highest and best, and they came in 200,000 over. So those are the things that, really, you've got to work with an agent that's got a strong backbone that doesn't buckle under that pressure, because if they do, it could cost you a lot of money, right? In that instance, if, the typical agent will think, oh, okay, well, maybe you come in this, I've seen it all the time. Well, they'll mention the number, even though if it's over the list price, but they're not supposed to mention that because it still limits them. Mm-hmm. So it's really important. You just basically got to know, when to keep your mouth closed and what to say.
It's crazy how much people will come. Like, we've sold a lot of deals that like only one person bid $100K over than everybody else. I don't know what they were seeing or what they were doing, but yeah, it's crazy when you give people the option. Sometimes they really, really come to bat.
Well, yeah, like this morning, the guy came over 50,000 over, and I said, well, you got to write your highest and best. If you want to bring us back an updated offer, please feel free. We're going to review them tomorrow. 50,000 over. That's how fast this business works. Mm-hmm. If you don't say the right things in speaking with somebody on the phone and or in text, knowing what to say, but more importantly, knowing what not to say, you can make it could make or break $50,000, right? Mm. And that's what a lot of people don't know, is because they think we all do the same thing, right? Mm. There's always somebody who's going to charge less, but look at their experience. And that's, as of one thing I always kind of share is, when you're working with an agent or you're interviewing an agent, is look on Zillow. Although Zillow is not a great source for valuations and things like that, the only thing really I think it's good for is it gives you a ballpark idea. But it actually shares, if someone's worth their salt, they're going to have a Zillow profile. And what's going to happen there, it links to the MLS, the multiple listing service, and it transfers all of our deals, right? It transfers our listings, our sales, active listings, sold. So you can see where an agent sits as far as, do they work with more sellers or more buyers? You're going to look at the reviews, and those reviews are pretty cool because they track the IP address. So it's not like I can tell you or anyone else to start pumping in reviews there, and video reviews are great. That's important, so you can see, okay, does this agent do business? If are they a team? Are they too big to give me that personal touch and the care that I need? That's important. So the Zillow profiles are good for a few things, and just to kind of see what the level of experience is, and that's kind of based on production. Like it'll show the last 12 months of the number of transactions that they've been involved with. So I think that's really beneficial. And check out the agent's website. Are they just Facebook famous, or do they actually do the work that they say they do? Do they know what they're doing? Do you see before and afters of what any kind of renovations that they do, right? Do they get deals? Do they have discounts set up with these other vendors? Like I have discounts set up with my vendors, so we get the best price on certain things, which is nice. So this is.
You can look that up with buyers too, just going back to like vetting buyers. But like if you get an LLC offer, you can look up the LLC and see, is this LLC closing on these properties and flipping them themselves, or are they closing on them and reselling them? So that's another thing to look out for with buyers.
Oh yeah, and making sure all that stuff matches, like the entity, and if it's I've run into situations, if it's an LLC and they haven't paid their taxes, it stalls it up with title. If the LLC, the bank, the money doesn't match the name for the LLC, there's all these little things that if they don't add up, they're probably not professional, or they're not serious, or the money's coming from here or there, and it just kind of gets it gets muddy, and it could get you into trouble, because if you don't know what you're doing and make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, you could run into issues in escrow, and it's bad for everybody. But and I think this is probably one of the most important things to go over when you're in probate, or you're going to file for probate, is the real property, because that's, I think, probably the biggest asset most people have. And when they don't go through probate, they're usually in a better situation, meaning that there's usually a trust involved. But the people that I see going through probate are usually in the economic income level under a certain percentage or a number. So they usually don't spend the money to file a trust to make sure their home is in a trust, because it's either never going to happen to me, or they just don't want to spend the money. But they don't realize it's going to cost them probably 10 to 12%, because the attorney gets paid, the agent gets paid, instead of the property going directly to like a beneficiaries or the family. They don't really realize, okay, maybe a little bit up front will save me a lot, at the end, right? And nobody gets out alive, so it's going to happen to us all. I have a trust.
Your family, the beneficiaries, everybody involved.
Yeah, and it's like it's setting that up is just the best thing, I think, because most people, that's all they have is a home. And depending on they want to make sure the home goes to the right person that they want it to go. Otherwise, it's going to be split up with all the heirs and everyone else possibly. And it just puts a lot of strain on the family, and it could cause a lot of issues about the family may not be a family at the end of the day. After that, I've seen that happen too. But everybody's
fighting over money.
They're fighting over money.
Even making enough money to make it worth the fight.
Yeah, it's.
But it is sad. I talked to a lady today that it was her son who passed away, and I'm sure she was an older woman, but it's like, and that's such a simple thing, and he was young, so he probably wasn't thinking about it. But now, his mom's really upset and having to deal with all of this, and it's like stressful.
Oh yeah, the stress involved throughout the whole process, and that's where you make. Your judgment might not be there if you're dealing with someone that you were referred from your church or from the PTA, or somebody that doesn't do real estate full time. Yeah. It could really impact you, and you may not be thinking straight, and you are making the right decisions, and
they don't know what they're doing.
That's
scary.
That does happen.
It creates a more stressful. It's already a stressful transaction and situation to be in. So you want to be working with professionals
to make it less stressful.
It's just an easy and smooth, and you don't have to worry.
That's the key. It's like making it like simple, easy, stress-free, and that's kind of my goal, and what I try to achieve at each deal, and just try to do that. And hopefully, typically it always ends up that way, where the client is very happy. We got the best value for the property. They went with my recommendation, whether that's as is or to renovate. We get the best prices on the renovation, so they're usually appreciative to the work because there is a lot of work involved in doing that as well. It's not selling a property, putting it in the MLS, selling it. There's a lot of stuff that goes in there, and then all the negotiations on the back end, which nobody ever tells you about, right? Like what we talked about
All
today.
the things that can happen between accepting an offer and actually closing it.
Yeah, it's not just put it in and it's sold and do nothing. Yeah, those do happen, but not with probate and trust and family. It's a nightmare, especially evictions. But well, I want to thank you for joining us here on Probate Cafe. It's been fun, and you shared a lot of good information. Hopefully, this episode is watched many times. If you've seen this, watch it again. You'll get a lot of information. If you want to visit the website, probatecafe.com. Stay tuned. You can either go there now or after you listen to this or watch this, and enter to win the weekly $50 gift card drawing. We do that every week, and you can be kept up to date on the next upcoming podcast where we will have attorneys present to answer any kind of questions you have. If you're in a different state, it may not apply to you, but you can always email us or email me questions, and all of my contact information will be on probatecafe.com. And other than that, if you are in a situation where you are a pro per and you filed for probate, you're going through the process, it's dragging on, and you've got beneficiaries calling you to ask you what the process is, what's going on, why haven't you moved forward, and you're not sure how to navigate that, feel free to give me a call. I will connect you with an attorney that knows what they're doing, because attorneys, like agents, you could throw a dart and kind of pick one, and I've seen it where I know in California especially, I know the attorneys that are doing the numbers, right, that have certain amount of probates filed each year, so we can actually know who's really good, or if it's someone that we've never heard about, or if it's somebody that does family law or that does business law that may do a probate because they're going to get paid a percentage and they don't want to lose that $25,000, so they may take it and not really know what they're doing, and it could just cause you a little bit of stress. Through that
I talked
process.
to 2 people today that were stressed about their attorney.
Oh, really? Yeah. Interesting. So it does happen, folks. So reach out to me if you're in that situation. Reach out to me. I'll connect you with someone that knows what they're doing. They're competent. They specialize in estate planning and probate. So you'll be in good hands. I can probably refer you anywhere in the country as well. And there's certain things that we look for in connecting, any listener with anybody, any professional that they need. Again, check out Probate Cafe, and thank you guys for watching. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you on the next podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. Thank you.